Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and finally the day has come. The retroactive leak inspection for Starfield. Every single Bethesda Game Studios game, this happens. We get the big reveal, like the Starfield Direct, and then we go back to the old leaks and we go, oh, that was kind of true. That was definitely false. And that was really true. Wait, what else do they know? And so here we are today, combing through it all, going back to even 2018 and seeing what was real and what was fake. And effectively what this video is a lot of cleanup work. We don't necessarily have brand new details or spoilers for you, thank goodness, I would say. What we have here is a lot of cleanup work on misinformation versus accurate information. And the moral of this story is going to be, don't believe everything you read on the internet, children. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Starfield news, information, discussion, speculation, all that great stuff, consider subscribing. But before anything else, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Brilliant.org. Brilliant.org is the best way to learn math and computer science interactively, with thousands of lessons from foundational advanced math to AI, data science, neural networks, and more, with new lessons added monthly. This time around, I decided to focus in on computer science. You see, I work with a couple of programmers, and I've always found the, we'll say, math-centric part of the brain quite elusive to me. And I've always wondered, like, what's it like to be a math brain? Well, I'm going to challenge myself just to get closer to the matter, understand the people I work with a little bit more. What is that power like? And what I got to say is Brilliant empowers you beautifully with really easy to use tools built for busy people. It starts you on the right path, asking what skill level you're at for, in my case, math, and you're going to gradually master these topics as little as 15 minutes a day. And I was doing it on my tablet in the other room here at the office, so you can find time for these things and enhance your knowledge. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/MrMattyPlays or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. All right, so this is the main Reddit thread that I'm seeing going around. Shout out to my boy Juicehead, who rounded up a ton of this information on his own video. You can check it out on his channel. The title of this Reddit thread is "Today's Showcase Undisputedly Confirms This Starfield Leak from Years Ago," which also details the story and the ending of the game. Heavy spoilers ahead. Now, you can rest assured that I think this is pretty fake, and we're going to go through why. At first, people are going to believe it. So when you take a look at the opening snapshot here, and don't worry, we won't get into any story stuff whatsoever, you're going to see a lot of things that seem pretty accurate. Flyable spaceships with space combat, as well as ship customization. And we do see all of that in the Starfield Direct. It was also confirmed in separate interviews beforehand. They mentioned here that there's a city on Mars called Cydonia, one of the bigger urban locations in the game, since it was the first place in Starfield's universe that got colonized. That did end up being pretty accurate. We can actually see in Starfield's Direct that Cydonia is there, and it is something that, how could you have really known beforehand? Well, we'll get into that. They also mentioned two major pirate organizations in the Crimson Fleet and the Black Fleet. Again, pretty accurate. We do see at least the Crimson Fleet, but this Black Fleet, well, if he was right about the Crimson Fleet, then the Black Fleet has to be real. Let's run with it, right? That is the nature of Starfield's current leak process. In fact, you can see it being backed up right here in the Starfield Direct. A Black Fleet ship is available right before your very eyes. Okay. So this all looks incredibly legitimate, right? Let's dig through the story spoilers. Let's dig through all the other details, learn everything we can about Starfield. But there's a couple of holes in the armor here that I think are showing that this would be fake more than real. And what's hilarious is this is almost like an anime arc. For us to fully shut down this leak, we're going to get into a separate leak that came much earlier down the line. Stay tuned, you'll see what I mean, but for now, let's shut down a couple of things. First of all, when it comes to something like Cydonia, that was mentioned here in the 2021 trailer, where it does mention Cydonia security. Keeping in mind the timeline, some people may remember this Mars rover Easter egg that was discovered during 2022's gameplay showcase for Starfield. Again, 2022, this was after the leak had happened, so for a lot of people, it added even more legitimacy to it because this was not shown off prior to this leak. And when it comes to the Black Fleet, well, guess what? When you go to save this image, the name of the file is Black Fleet. So again, publicly available information. And when it comes to the Crimson Fleet, we already knew about the Crimson Fleet long ago, thanks to this little developer documentary where we saw Emil Pagliarulo pounding away on what looks to be Google Docs. And in there, we see that there is a mentioning of the Crimson Fleet. So those are a number of things that were already publicly available listed in this leak that definitely makes it look real if you're not deeply entrenched in the Starfield community. However, there's one thing that is continuous between a couple of leaks, and it's this right here, which mentions a different starting location. And how exactly did we get all of that? Well, let's get into the next set of leaks here. You may remember we talked about someone named Heavy008. This was actually a person who worked at Bethesda who completely snapped the NDA right over their knee and actually went on to try to defend themselves shortly thereafter before deleting all of their posts in their account there. But anyway, at first they say here that the engine is crap. They say that Todd's a charismatic guy. Starfield's looking good with weekly playtests beginning at the start of the year. The shooting feels all right. He says the flying feels terrible, and it's not just for him. The lighting and stuff is looking better. You know, okay, we're looking pretty good here. That there's an overabundance of content. Boom, that looks right on. When you look at Starfield and the absolute vast nature of it, that seems pretty accurate there. They mentioned a beta in summer and that the picture will become very clear afterwards, which makes sense given the delay for the game. So there are leaks like that which were legitimate but revealed no details. So you can kind of run with that one, but that's where the details end for, unfortunately, that leaker, because they realized, oh, I am breaking an NDA. Oh, whoa, don't want to do that anymore. Okay, Bethesda's lawyers, hey, how's it going? Guys, it was a misunderstanding. But to go further and connect the two leaks that we started the video with, and now the one we're getting into, we got to go back to 2018, where a poster wrote at the bottom here, our game is more of an organic growth game with Morrowind's RPG systems coming back in a deeper form, but more organic to Skyrim's leveling by action. And we will be expanding on this through a spaceship that will grow with you, not only in tech, but crew. As for the theme, we are trying to hit the perfect blend of Star Trek and Prey with modern sci-fi. Okay, I mean, we saw the more Morrowind-like nature of the game, which was incredibly exciting. We saw the leveling by doing when they went all in on skills during the Starfield Direct. It's all right there. In fact, something that just recently got firmed up in the last month and a bit of Matty vindication. Yeah, I'm taking a victory lap a second time. Pardon me, but when you get dragged like I did, I'm going to have my moment here. He did mention in this leak that it would be out in about 2 to 3 years, which would put it in 2021. Separate from any reporting I had done, it looked like officially Bethesda was going to release this game in 2021. I even went on to pull out Fallout 4, Doom Eternal, and Dishonored 2 as examples where their release years had all been listed in a similar format. But in fact, it was confirmed via Phil Spencer that Starfield had a much earlier release date before Xbox told Bethesda to take its time, which would line up with 2021. And I say all of that because that adds further legitimacy to what this person was saying. And it also adds legitimacy to some of the reporters out there who were saying, oh, Starfield's in rough shape. If it doesn't get more time, it's going to be the next Cyberpunk. And now it looks like it's going to be able to avoid all of that, which is fantastic, of course. And we'll see what the quality of the product is when it comes out. But it does add legitimacy to the leak here, where myself and others were saying, like, yeah, 2021, like they're looking at that as the release window, and that we were all saying delays could happen, and they got moved back to 2022. And that's where a lot of journalists came in and tried to, I would say, assert the order of power in this industry by saying, oh, that was never happening. No, not at all. That was a bunch of YouTubers who know nothing. You shouldn't believe everything. This same leaker also did make mention of, you guessed it, that there was a separate starting location at the beginning of the game, which would make more sense that the old leaker would say something like this, strictly because then things would change over 5 years later when the game would finally be coming out. And I say all that because guess where the first leaker got the idea of a different starting location? That's right, it was from this original leak here, which did prove to be pretty accurate, because they came back again in 2019 to talk about Fallout 76, and then again in 2021 to talk about things like romance being in Starfield, which we now know is official, that the gameplay exists of exploring the universe. We do know that space travel is in the game, and that the first-person camera is more akin to Fallout 4 with a bit of a handling upgrade from id, which again, you could say is somewhat true, but one thing Todd Howard did clarify was that it helped with the visuals. Specifically, he mentioned motion blur in this interview here, but also upgraded animation work done by sister studios. So I say all of that to put into perspective that even the most accurate of leaks seems to have got a little bit wrong here. And I think it's important that the Starfield community is aware of what's accurate and what's not. And the truth is that no one has necessarily been spot on because of Starfield's extremely long-winded development cycle. I mean, this game entered alpha apparently multiple years ago. It's been playable from start to finish for 2+ years now. And so that's alpha. They've been polishing and polishing and polishing this experience. And we know, just given how massive the game is, how much the scope has grown with it, that so many things have shifted and changed. Where there was a period of time I was wrong about Starfield to only be vindicated years later, that there are leakers who look completely right, but then parts of the game that are not existing anymore. So they were wrong in some instances. And I think it just goes to show that these things change big time, and that early leaks should not be dealt with in any other way other than let's move on. But I see a ton of people running around with this on Twitter, on Reddit, going like, yo, this is it. Like, the big poppin' leak is here. Oh, look how much they got right. And I totally get how it looks at a first glance. Like, oh man, they got all of this right. But I think it's almost reassuring to know so much is wrong there, because one thing that's been very well guarded with Starfield, I think, is the narrative, because the general premise of the game has been sold to us all what's out there. Beyond that, we just know there's artifacts, there are these rings, and they're trying to find something at, I imagine, like the center of the universe. And what that is such a mystery to all of us, and they've done such a good job protecting that. And I remember with like Fallout 4, the same thing was kind of happening, but later, closer to the release date, oh man, things started to really slip for them, and there were a couple of leaks. And I remember I got some of Fallout 4 story spoiled for me. Of course, it's such a Mets fan moment. I was reading an article about the Mets, and in the comments there was a Fallout 4 spoiler. It was inescapable. So for me to know that 2 months out from Starfield's release, which is crazy to think about, by the way, that it seems like the story-related leaks aren't going to be accurate, that to me is incredibly relieving, because I don't want to have to dodge stuff for 2 months. No one wants to dodge stuff for 2 months. So I just want to make sure we did some cleanup work here. We identified what was accurate, and also showed that a lot of the accurate leaks were stuff that you could have grabbed from publicly available knowledge. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's everything for today's Starfield video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you, and let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. So fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.